for more on this story, we can bring in our chief foreign editor, Rob Parsons. Rob, there, that legislation rubber stamp. No surprises there, really.
Oh, absolutely none. There was zero suspense about what was going to happen today. Same with the signature of Vladimir Putin. Quite clearly, this is going to go ahead. But nevertheless, it has to be said that the whole event has been surrounded with confusion, with Vladimir Putin's press spokesman saying on Monday that it wasn't even clear yet what the territorial boundaries of at least two of those provinces is going to be, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson. Peskov, the press spokesperson, said that there would be negotiations with local people. Subsequently, senior members of the lower house of the Russian parliament said, not so, we know exactly what it's going to be. They're going to be the same territorial boundaries that all those regions had before the Russian conflict with Ukraine started in 2014. So confusion surrounding all that.
But the Ukrainians have just taken Lyman.
Well, there's that as well, but also at the same time as this is going on at the political level, there's a growing dissatisfaction, growing nervosity in Russian society, and it's been interesting to see over the last few days how the criticism of the Russian special military operation, as they call it, rather than a war, has spilled out of the social media into the mainstream media, into television and into the newspapers. There's several big papers carrying criticism of what's been going on and carrying opinion polls that show 69% of the population now are very nervous about what's going on.
Wow. But at the same time, as all of this is going on, you touched on this, said that the borders of those regions that have been annexed shift. Russia losing on the battlefield over in Ukraine.
Yeah, there's no good news for the Russian military at the moment, as some of those commentators that I was referring to on Russian television have been pointing out. The most significant development at the moment, it seems, though, is in the south, in Kherson. You may remember a couple of months ago, the Ukrainians announced a counter-offensive in Kherson, and everybody expected that the main thrust of the Ukrainian forces would be there. It subsequently emerged that was more like a feint than anything else to suck in Russian forces from the north so that the Ukrainians could launch that counter-offensive in Kharkiv region that was so successful. But now, in the south, in Kherson, the Ukrainians are making progress there. They've advanced about 30 kilometers in the northeastern corner of Kherson province to the village of Dutchany. They seem to be progressing further, according to Russian bloggers, talking about what's happening on the ground at the moment. It looks like they've gone a further 20 kilometers. That is really bad news for the Russians if those claims are stood up. The Russians have 25,000 men in that part of Kherson region. They look as though they're increasingly surrounded. They'd already cut off from their supplies to the east because the Ukrainians have destroyed all the bridges across the Dnipro and Inhuliets rivers. Supplies are not getting in, no food getting in, no ammunition getting in, no heavy weaponry getting in. They look increasingly isolated. The Ukrainians more and more confident as every day passes. The news, as I was saying, the outlook for the Russians at the moment, both in the north of Donbass and in the south, looks pretty bad.
So Ukraine continuing on with their counteroffensive despite those four regions being annexed. Absolutely. And trying to get back that territory as well. Thank you very much for that, Rob Parsons there.